Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
How you doing? How you doing?
I'm fine. I'm very ready to go to bed. It's 10:01 in the morning, and I could very well just get back in bed and sleep for another 8 hours. Or at least another 6 hours. How are you doing?
I'm good. I had a walk this morning, went out to the park. Excuse me. Took the dogs. They were reasonably well behaved.
It's always nice.
Yep. It's hot and muggy.
You said it feels nice out.
Okay.
Oh.
No, it's just me. No, and there's a breeze now, so that's nice. There wasn't one when I left. I got out of the car here and I was like, oh, that's sort of pleasant.
Oh, should have waited an hour.
No. But maybe because now the sun's covered up a little bit, wouldn't have been so hot, my hair is wet.
I almost texted you and asked you if you just wanted to wait and go for a walk until I had to go over that way anyway.
I'd much rather get out really early and do it.
Before there's a bunch of people out there.
Yeah. And I was listening to Crime Junkie, the newest episode, which is okay.
I wish I liked Crime Junkie more. I think it's the same issue. I think it's the same issue that you have with My Favorite Murder, where it's just kind of listening to the girls talk that you don't like. I think Ashley Flowers is a very smart woman. I just don't really like listening to her talk. She sounds a little too much like a girl that would have bullied me in high school.
I can get behind that.
You know,
sort of get behind that.
Whereas Karen and Georgia very much feel like two girls that would have gotten bullied alongside me in high school. But I do like both her. I've liked her on other podcasts. You know, we do come from a very true crime centric family. Sans our dad, sans our father, who is not maybe as into the true crime stuff.
Anyway. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I was looking at some of the stuff from the creators from Old Gods of Appalachian.
Oh, yes.
Which, if you haven't listened to and you like horror stuff, is pretty darn good.
It's pretty good. I'm liking it so far.
I don't really like horror stuff, but it's still a really good story. Or a bunch of really good stories.
Yeah.
Anthology.
Yeah, semi-anthology.
But anyway, one of the creators does like true crime stuff from the Appalachian area.
Oh, interesting. See, now that seems much more up my alley than Old Gods of Appalachia. Like, he does podcasts? She? Better.
She's a co-host on it.
You do not see enough female-around true crime stuff. All anyone ever brings up is Crime Junkie and My Favorite Murder.
Yeah, they're definitely, I guess, the big ones. And
Jensen and Knowles.
The Murder Squad.
Yeah, who are decidedly not women, but also very, very prominent in the true crime community.
Right.
Also, I don't know, like, if I'm going to believe anyone about a murder, I'm going to believe Paul Holes, dude investigating cold cases for a living.
Right.
He's got to know. So, anyway. Oh god, I'm a little slow on my feet today, I'm sorry. We just had to take a drink of water and we're like, hey, keep the recording going. I was like, so anyway. That's what they call day.
Yeah. So, let's see, what did I end up listening to? I listened to it all the way through and I was just kind of like, not this particular story, I guess. I'm kind of interested because, so here's the thing. Here's the thing that they were talking about. They were talking about a murder that happened, or a death that happened in Cumming, Georgia, okay? And these girls, these women had gotten together and had kind of like a girls' night sleepover thing. And one of the women was found in the backyard the next morning, like kind of like underneath this balcony, face down with her feet to the house and her head facing away from the house and her arms out at different, like, like a starfish, kind of. And they were like, oh, it must have been an accident. And then they started, they talked about more about like what had happened and what the police had found and what people had said, what the people who found her had said. But literally the first thing that caught my mind was the way she was found. If you accidentally fall off a balcony, you're not going to land like a starfish with your feet.
You're also not going to land partially underneath the balcony.
Right. Well, she was kind of like, I guess, out in front of it a little bit.
Okay.
But
no, you put your. If you were conscious. Sorry, this is where the subject matter is going immediately. But if you were conscious, falling off of a balcony, naturally you put your arms out like this.
Right.
To shield your face. So if anything, her hands would have been found like underneath her body.
Right. Not out like a starfish.
Is that the one where everyone was white except that woman who died?
No.
This is a different case. Okay. I was just making sure. Because if that was the case, I was going to say that wasn't an only girls sleepover, that was a couple's sleepover.
Yeah, well, it was all girls except the girl whose house it was at, her boyfriend was over and a couple of his friends. But it wasn't like a couple's thing.
Sounds really like the one that I'm thinking of, but if the girl that died wasn't black.
She was black, but so were a lot of women at the party.
Then it's still a different thing. There was a different case, actually also in Georgia, of a group of couples getting together for a sleepover, and the only black woman was found dead the next morning, and her head had been, like, beaten in. So, I don't know what that says to anyone else, but to me that says ambush.
I don't know.
I like to take pride in the state I live in, but when you live in Georgia, it can be a little tricky sometimes. It can be a little hard to take pride in the state you live in.
But anyway, it was just interesting, and it was funny that, to me it was funny that, like, they had to go through, like, all this stuff, and they were like, what about, like, this call? They had like, part of the recording where this lady who owned the place, or rented the place, had, like, called 911, and then her boyfriend got on the phone, and they were like, well, she sounds suspiciously unbothered by this. And I was like, you don't know what she's going through. Like,
also, some people just handle grief differently.
Well, and maybe not even just grief, but like stress. It's like, okay, I have to call 911. I have to give them concise information. I have to tell them stuff. I would probably, if I had to call 911 about anybody, I'd probably be like, okay, so here's the deal. My husband just fell off the roof, and I think his neck is broken, and I need an ambulance here immediately. I live at 4252, blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to tell you what my address is.
Sure did start to, though.
Yep. But, I mean, I could see me doing something like that and not saying. So they were like, okay, well, she doesn't sound that bothered. He doesn't sound that bothered. And you don't hear, like, anybody else in the background sounding all put out. And it's like, what are you expecting these women to be, like, running around the house screaming like Daffy Duck?
Well, if one of my friends had been found dead at a sleepover, I probably would be freaking out like that.
Right, but also if the house... Okay, so, but then also if the house is big enough and you needed to make this call, wouldn't you leave a room where somebody is freaking out so you could call?
I mean, yes. Okay, here's the thing that bothers me about true crime podcasts. Unless you are a behavioral specialist,
right,
you have no expertise deciphering 911 calls.
Right.
You have no expertise.
And they will totally say that. Go ahead.
Yeah. And I know they know, because they're friends with Paul Moles.
Right.
You know, Ashley is really good friends with Paul Moles. But, like, there was a 911 call that is now used in a lot of 911 training in deciphering a fake call versus a real emergency.
Right.
That this older, probably in her late 70s, early 80s, woman would call the police because this guy was, like, outside her house, just kind of, like, hanging out outside her house, like, around the back of her house and shit, like, really suspicious behavior,
Creepy.
obviously, yeah. And the 911 operator, immediately, the first thing she does is not ask for the address. And I'm, like, she just starts asking these questions, and I'm like, you're a 911 operator, you need to get her address first.
Right.
But this was before that training was implemented. And why that training is implemented, because you can hear her getting attacked and beaten on the call.
Jesus.
And it's rough. It's a rough listen. But, like, now that is used in 911 training in, like, this is what you need to be doing. If someone calls you and says that there's an emergency outside their house, your first question is not, are you sure? Because if they're calling 911, they're probably pretty fucking sure.
Most people are probably not going to call 911 just on a whim.
Yeah, and if
I was literally dying. Bruce was like...
And if they are going to call 911 on a whim, it's not going to be a fucking 80-year-old woman.
Right.
That just doesn't line up. That profile doesn't line up.
Go help this poor lady. Well, or, you know, but she might have been like, you know, maybe she was a little bit, you know, maybe some dementia or something like that, you know. But then you still are not going to ask, if it is dementia, you're not going to ask.
Do you have dementia? Just before I get your address real quick.
Just before we send the police.
Are you crazy, baby? Could you be imagining this? She's getting fucking murdered on the phone.
Does it look like Kermit the Frog?
I've never even considered that a 911 operator could be so bad at their job. But that operator, oh my god. I was like, I had no training in emergency 911 calls. But I would have done, like,
right.
1,000 times better than she had. Because I know.
You get someone on the way, and then while they're on their way, you send them the information that you're getting over your call, right?
Yep. And just like in a lot of cases, it really behooves you to believe the victim immediately. If someone calls you and tells you they're in danger,
yeah,
treat it like they're in danger, because the worst that's going to happen is they get arrested for wasting police time.
Right.
And you don't get in trouble. But now that 911 operator has to live with the fact that this 911 call,
right,
and this woman was found beaten to death in her own home.
Unreal.
It is. Anyway, that's the first 13 minutes of our talk done. It's so funny because we totally made I'm sure you can see the outline of the
sticky notes.
The idea post-it notes, yeah. And not one of them was true crime. That's weird. Why didn't we write true crime?
I don't know, but I'm gonna write it right now.
Okay. Well, good. We've just got a little line of topics to pick from. But so last week we left off, or last time we recorded, we left off talking about British television.
Yes, and The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit.
Yes. Which I still argue are both great series.
Yeah. You still want to continue that?
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Do you have anything further you kind of like to add on that? Or
I'm sure we can come up with other things. I haven't been watching a lot of British television.
So let's switch to something else. Let's talk about Queer Eye.
We watched Queer Eye yesterday.
We did. I don't know.
The last 2 episodes of the current season.
Which is always the worst feeling when you finish a season of Queer Eye and you realize that there's no more new Queer Eye to watch. Like,
that's accurate.
That, you know?
Yeah.
Like, we finished the episode, it was so good. Such a good episode. And then it was like, I went to the episodes and it was the last one and I was like, oh Okay.
I want something else to make me feel good.
I want more Jonathan. I just want more Jonathan Van Ness in my life. I'm a good God-fearing gay man. I just love Jonathan Van Ness. He's a big gay Jesus. I don't know what to say. Not a phrase I coined either. That was him.
He is so cute.
Yeah, he's adorable. They really are all. Like, they're all just, hey, shout out to the Fab Five.
Right.
For literally curing my depression.
Literally alleviating my depression.
Yeah. Maybe not curing. But definitely helping. Yeah, this last season in particular has been a bit of a doozy every episode, right?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like when it started, they were like, yeah, let's go make over this, like, this middle-aged kind of straight guy, like the original was, started out much more like the original.
Yeah. Bruce still calls it that.
Yeah.
Queer Eye for the Straight Guy.
It's a different show.
Different show now.
Different show, different cast, much less problematic.
Oof.
Nothing against the original Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, except for the few things I have against it.
Except for whoever was writing this, or
yeah, it's very It's very early 2000s.
Yeah.
Just in terms of what's socially acceptable.
I just don't like a lot of confrontation on shows and stuff like that, and like,
They were really harsh.
They were really harsh, and they were really like in your face about stuff too.
It was a bit like watching early What Not to Wear.
Oof.
Of course, now Stacey London is one of the coolest fucking people I've ever seen.
Absolutely.
And has since come out as gay, I think. And
Yeah.
married her wife.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah. And she's got a gray streak that looks a lot like yours.
I know, and she is my inspiration for me growing my hair out.
I think she's fucking fantastic. I really love her.
It will never be straight and silky like Stacey's hair, but my hair will be long and frizzy and big like Rosanna Dana with a big white gray streak in it. Or 3.
Is she the lady from Rosanna?
No. It's a character that Gilda Radner did on Saturday Night Live.
I always get those two mixed up for some reason.
Yeah.
I loved Roseanne. Can I just say that real quick? I don't really do a lot of sitcoms, but I ended up watching all of Roseanne when I lived with my ex-fiance.
Really?
Yeah. And
I did not know this about you. Now I'm kind of like, really?
You know what? And not one single bit of it was Roseanne Barr. John Goodman was a peach on that fucking show.
Yeah.
And the cute thing is, she was totally into John Goodman when they were doing the show.
Really?
Oh yeah. He was like the perfect husband. Like the chemistry we had on screen immediately flowed into off-screen chemistry.
Right.
She was like, yeah, I was all head over heels for him, like the entire time he did the show.
He seems like a real sweetie.
He really does, doesn't he?
Okay.
I like the rest of the cast. And I really like most of Roseanne. There's just a few jokes. But then they ended up tackling a lot of like they tackled homophobia and they tackled racism in a way that you wouldn't expect a 90s sitcom to. I don't see why people watch Seinfeld when there are shows that handle real problems effectively and are written by funnier comedians.
I'm not a fan of Roseanne Barr.
I get that. You know what? I can see why you wouldn't be. And there are definitely some things that she jokes about that I was a little like...
Not a big fan. But John Goodman, yes. John Goodman and, what's the name of that movie?
Brother Where Art Thou?
As the Cyclops?
Oh my god, amazing.
Amazing.
If you haven't seen Oh Brother Where Art Thou, I don't know what you're doing with your life.
I love that.
Because you're not watching Oh Brother Where Art Thou. I was really late to the train on that. I think I was really late to the train on Coen Brothers movies in general. Because I watched Oh Brother when I was a little too young.
Yeah.
And so all of the really heavy tones in that movie, you know, there are straight up, like, there are scenes where they are trying to burn a black man at the cross, and, like, there are scenes where they're trying to lynch people, and, like, it does not shy away from that, as is pretty normal for the Coen brothers. However, I think I was 6 or younger, probably, the first time I saw it. And it just rubbed me the wrong way immediately.
Yeah.
Because I was watching this movie with no real education on the racism.
Right.
Like, I grew up in a school in Georgia, so I didn't really learn about the KKK all that much. I spent a lot of time on World War II in history, and then the KKK and their influence was just kind of like brushed past as a thing that only existed during the Civil War.
Mm-hmm. But also, you know, you also didn't have the reference of what the story was based on.
For sure, yeah. I didn't read The Alien until I was in 6th grade, which is still very early, I think.
Yes.
It was required reading, so there you go. They gave us a shortened version of The Alien and the Odyssey, where it was kind of all condensed into maybe a visitor. Special guest star. Okay. I had to read a shortened version where The Alien and the Odyssey were condensed.
Right.
But I don't think I did. I actually think I just read the Odyssey all the way through.
Yeah.
Instead. Because the Alien is really fucking boring, it turns out. Compared to the Odyssey.
Hot take.
Hot take. It's kind of like watching Kill Bill Part 1 versus watching Kill Bill Part 2. Or Kill Bill Part 1, you're like, yeah, she's fucking killing everyone. Cut that bitch's head off. What's that thing that Lucy Liu says? She's like, skin the white bitch or something. It's a really cool fucking line. I don't remember. It's been a long time since I've seen it. That movie gets me so hyped, and as soon as I started watching the second part, I got like halfway through and I was like, no one's died. The only thing that's happened
is the story.
The only thing that's happened is the story, and there was a really uncomfortable rape scene. That's what part 2 of Kill Bill gave me. So I just don't watch it. I just watch the first part, and I'm like, I know how it ends. Like, she gets Bill. She kills Bill.
Right.
Spoiler alert. If you haven't seen it, she kills Bill.
Spoiler alert.
But yeah, I think that because of that, because I watched it so early, I didn't watch Her Brother Where Art Thou. I didn't like the movie.
Right.
And I didn't watch it again until 2.5 years ago, maybe? And I rewatched it by myself, and I was like, huh, this is a really good movie.
Right.
You know, I have all the source material. I have since educated myself on the way racism, like, kind of worked.
Right.
In those days, and, like, seeing all of the parallels to the Alien and the Odyssey, and, like, the way they tied that in so well with the early American setting, I was like, that's really solid. Also, do I love George Clooney? Yeah. I love all of them.
All of them.
Jim Turturro.
Tim Blake Nelson. I'm with you fellers.
I'm with you fellers. We thought you was a toad. It's me, Delmore. It's one of the most quotable movies. We could sit here for the rest of the time and just.
Oh my god! When they go to like at the beginning of the movie when they're like escaping and they go stay with that guy's cousin or something like that. He was like, you know, one of them's like, yeah, this food's pretty good. He was like, you think so? I slaughtered this horse like a week ago. I think it's starting to turn.
It's starting to turn. And they're all just like,
okay.
Gotta eat. There was, yeah, I love them. I mean, it's such a great, and they all do such a great job. You know,
oh yeah,
the 3 main
excellent.
guys do a great job.
Yep.
Perhaps.
The Georgia girl who played the wife. Who played George
After
Clooney.
you got run over by that train. Well, what was I supposed to do? I don't have an accent normally, but I can slip directly into a Georgian accent.
Oh my goodness.
Well, what was I supposed to do? After you ran off and got hit by that train? It's like, dumb, hit by a train. So funny. Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is like, they did an amazing job, the three main guys, but everyone else in the movie,
So good.
like the younger black guy they meet,
Oh,
that sold his soul.
Robert Johnson.
Oh,
Or a Robert Johnson type character.
so good. He started singing next to that campfire in that one scene, and I was like,
Killing Floor? He was singing Killing Floor.
Killing Floor Blues. Still one of my favorite songs from the soundtrack.
Yup.
That one and
Hard times will drive you from door to door.
and Go to Sleep, the Siren song.
Mm.
So good.
Such an excellent
So
movie.
haunted.
Yep.
And I can never remember her name, but the girl that sings I'll Fly Away.
Oh.
Addison.
Alison Krauss? Was that
Alison Krauss? Yep. I had an ex who met her at I had an ex who performed at the White House and met Alison Krauss and a bunch of other country singers. But that was the only real part I was jealous of. I was like, damn, she was an Oprah Rambo.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I fucking know her from.
Yeah, it's funny, you know, it's like not big on like the big bands and stuff like that, but like, oh my god. When Lee called me to tell me that he saw Bella Fleck at the Floyd Country Store, I almost died.
I remember the same thing when he told me that Jason Isbell was performing at one of the Floyd Fests. I was like, but you work at those. You can't. Of course, now, if all things go as planned, I'm actually working the next Floyd Fest because the Ava Brothers are playing the next Floyd Fest for the first time in like 6 years. And I talked to Lee about it, and he said he'd be willing to talk to Aaron about like having me help with the Dogtown booth, so I can get in as a volunteer.
Oh, yeah, kind of. Well, there are things that are going to have to be wiped out with Dogtown too.
Yeah.
Also, if you haven't been to Dogtown in Floyd, Virginia, and you're nearby, go by. It's some of the best pizza in the world.
And it's worth the drive if you're not like super close.
Yeah.
Really, if you're anywhere near Floyd, you should go.
Yeah.
Just drive through it.
Friday night.
Yeah.
Good.
Tell Lee his family sent him.
Sent you.
Yeah. Whatever.
Good music on the streets.
Oh yeah. Oh my god. Yes, when I was staying up there, I was out taking pictures because it was this beautiful day. Like it had rained earlier, and the sun just like, bam, fucking punched through those clouds. And there was a big ass fucking rainbow, like right over the cemetery up at the top of the hill.
Gorgeous.
And I went out to take pictures of the rainbow and like the clouds and stuff, because I have a lot of friends that haven't been to Floyd yet, so I like to take pictures. And there was this little band outside the country store, the guys that own the music section of the country store. They got a little band, so they were all just like outside, like plucking away at their banjos and like playing guitar and singing.
Mountain string band.
Yeah. One guy played a washboard, and I just like sat out there and I took pictures and I kept looking over and I was like, man, this is exactly where I want to die. You know?
Oh, I would move to Floyd like that.
It's a morbid thing to think, but like, if I were gonna die in any town.
Okay, we're gonna have to have like a separate talk about small mountain towns and why it's nice to live there.
We've used up a lot of the time already.
Yeah, we have.
And I've got things to do.
And I also have things to do.
Yes.
So, but I hope you have a lovely day.
Yeah, I also hope you have a lovely day.
And hope you come back and join us
for more coffee and bullshit. Alright.
Love you.
Check you guys later.
Bye.